Oh no, we've crashed on a desert island. Hey, can you help me build a raft?
Or I can use that speedboat.
I wish we had a speedboat too, son, but this is the only way out of here.
Oh look, a resort.
You the kids have heat stroke. Go find water.
We'll be in room 308 if you need us.
It's up to us to find help. We'll come back for you.
Alexander Selkirk was a Scottish sailor who took part in long ocean expeditions. In 1704, aboard the Cinque Ports, Selkirk warned the captain that the ship was in dangerous condition and no longer seaworthy. The warning was dismissed, and after a heated argument, the captain left Selkirk on an uninhabited island. Fine, you're scared? Then stay here if you want. As the ship sailed away, Selkirk faced the truth. He was completely alone in the wild. The early days felt like absolute misery. No shelter, no fire, only loneliness and regret. Shouldn't have argued with that guy. Great job, Selkirk. Selkirk searched for shelter, built a hut from wood and leaves, learned to make fire, and confronted total isolation. But that was only the beginning. Life pretty much said, "Oh, you're struggling? Here's some extra." The island's weather was brutal. By day, the air was damp and chilling. At night, strong Pacific winds carried bone-deep cold. Constant drizzle kept the ground wet, attracting insects and rats. Worst of all were the rats. They bit him while he slept, and ruined his stored food. After overcoming panic, Selkirk began turning the island into a home. He hunted wild goats for meat and milk, crafted knives from scrap metal, and sewed clothes from goat skins. He even trained cats to fight the rats and tamed goats for companionship. So, which way are we hunting today? Mio. Alright, good idea. Once, Selkirk spotted a Spanish ship and ran to the shore waving for help, but the crew fired warning shots, mistaking him for a pirate. Selkirk fled into the forest, fearing he'd be taken as a prisoner. Selkirk survived for 4 years. In 1709, Captain Woodes Rogers' ship arrived and found a wild-looking man dressed in goat skins, with a beard like a castaway. "Are you human?" Rogers asked. "I'm Selkirk." Thankfully, Selkirk was rescued and brought back to civilization. Journalists, scholars, and nobles were fascinated by the man who survived in total isolation. Rogers' written accounts helped the story spread widely. It later became the inspiration for Daniel Defoe's novel, Robinson Crusoe. Ada Blackjack was an Inuit woman living in Alaska. In 1921, she joined a 5-man expedition organized by explorer Vilhjalmur Stephenson to Wrangel Island. This was a frozen stretch of land near the Arctic Ocean. Ada joined as a cook and interpreter. She needed the money to treat her young son, who was suffering from tuberculosis. The expedition quickly shifted from a fun Arctic trip to a survival reality show no one signed up for. The weather was 10 times harsher than anyone had expected. Supplies began running out. In the winter of 1922, 3 members looked at each other and decided, "We have to go find help." They left and never returned. The 4th member, Lauren Knight, became severely ill. Ada cared for him during his final months. She wiped his forehead, made broth, and encouraged him with soft words like, "You'll be all right." In June 1923, Knight passed away from his illness. Ada became the only person left alive on the island. Wrangel Island was brutally harsh. Winter lasted 8 months with temperatures plunging to -40. Winds howled day and night as if they never tired. Polar darkness stretched for months. No sun, no light, only darkness. The early days felt like pure misery. Ada didn't know what to do except cry. But she soon realized a harsh truth. No rescue was coming. There was no 911 to call. If she wanted to survive, she had to save herself. Ada switched fully into survival mode. She taught herself how to use the rifle. The first shot kicked her backward and knocked her into the snow, but Ada didn't give up. She practiced again and again. Slowly, she began hitting seabirds. She set traps for Arctic foxes. Their fur was essential for warmth. She trapped birds and fished beneath the ice. She gathered driftwood to keep a fire going for warmth and cooking. She reinforced her shelter to withstand the wind. She stitched fur clothing using homemade bone needles, and she tamed a small stray cat from the shore as her companion. To keep her mind steady, Ada wrote in her journal daily. Once, Ada faced a polar bear. The massive bear, over 2 meters tall, wandered near her camp. Ada held her rifle, hands trembling. The bear stepped closer. Ada closed her eyes, prayed, and fired a warning shot into the air. The bear startled and ran off. In August 1923, the ship Donaldson landed on the island. The crew found a thin woman with tangled hair wearing worn animal skin clothing. Around her were fox traps, fishing lines, and drying furs like a one-woman survival workshop. You're alive? Do I look like a ghost?" They could hardly believe it. A woman who wasn't a hunter or soldier had survived Wrangel Island alone for 2 years. Ada returned to Alaska after 703 days of survival. She received only a modest payment. She used it to treat her son's illness. She lived a quiet life and rarely spoke of her past. Ada's journal became legendary. The press hailed her as the bravest woman of the 20th century. Philip Ashton was born in 1702 in Marblehead, Massachusetts, a small fishing village north of Boston. In June 1722, at age 19, Ashton was captured by the pirate Edward Lowe while fishing off the coast of Nova Scotia. While Ashton was quietly plotting an escape, fate handed him a golden chance. The pirates stopped at Roatan Island to gather fresh water. Instead of helping carry barrels, Ashton sprinted into the forest and vanished like an Olympic runner. The pirates sailed away, leaving him the sole resident of the island. Ashton had nothing with him, not even shoes, a knife, or fire. All he had were the linen trousers and long shirt on his back. Roatan was uninhabited, covered in dense jungle filled with venomous snakes, aggressive wild hogs, and relentless swarms of biting flies. He began building a beachfront home from branches, palm leaves, and stones he collected along the shore. He ate wild figs, grapes, coconuts, and turtle eggs, either raw or sun-dried on palm leaves. He gathered shellfish along the coast but had no fire to cook them. Without a knife to prepare anything, he survived on raw food during his first weeks. After 9 months alone, in November 1723, Ashton encountered a man from northern England. The man arrived in a canoe carrying a gun, ammunition, a dog, and pork, intending to live off the land by hunting wild hogs. The two men spoke for 3 days. Before leaving to hunt, believing Ashton was too weak to join him, the Englishman left him 5 pounds of pork, a knife, gunpowder, a tobacco pipe, and flint. These items changed everything. With a knife and fire, Ashton began hunting small animals, cooking warm meals, and roasting turtles and crabs. Eventually, later in 1723, an English ship stopped for water and found Ashton, thin, ragged, and long-haired like a castaway. They took him aboard and gave him shelter. In March 1725, after 2 years and 10 months, Ashton finally returned home to Massachusetts. That same year, his account of survival was published in Boston, becoming one of the most famous true survival stories of its time. Marguerite de la Roque was born in 1515 into a wealthy noble family in France. In 1542, she joined an expedition to the New World led by her cousin Roberval. During the long voyage, Marguerite fell in love with a young man on the ship. The romance quickly turned tragic when Roberval discovered it. Weighted down by debts, Roberval knew that Marguerite's death would give him access to her inheritance. So in June, he abandoned Marguerite, her lover, and her elderly servant Damiens on the Isle of Damons, leaving only a few tools and a Bible before sailing away. The three tried to survive the first days using whatever ideas they could come up with. They built a rough shelter from branches and stone, coaxed fire out of damp wood, and collected rainwater in pieces of bark. They caught fish by hand, threw stones at seabirds, and ate roots without knowing which were safe. Marguerite was in the early months of pregnancy. Living in constant cold, Marguerite's lover soon developed a serious fever. With no medicine and little protection from the elements, his breathing became weaker. A few weeks later, he passed away in Marguerite's arms. She buried him near a rocky cliff overlooking the sea, where they had once waited for rescue ships. The months that followed were even harsher. Marguerite gave birth inside a freezing cave, helped only by Damiens. But in such unforgiving conditions, the child could not survive. When winter came, Damiens too could no longer endure. Marguerite was left completely alone, surrounded by stone, freezing winds, seabirds, and dangerous wildlife. As the grief settled, Marguerite's survival instincts awakened. She learned to hunt with the gun left behind, set traps for birds, and fished in icy waters. She gathered animal hides for clothing, built sturdier shelter, and trained herself to sleep through the howling of wolves. Her solitary meals were arranged on a flat stone like a banquet, and she critiqued them aloud as if she were hosting a dinner party. 2 years went by. In 1544, a group of Basque fishermen landed and saw a wild-looking woman dressed in animal skins and holding an old firearm. At first, they thought she was some kind of spirit or creature, but it was Marguerite, alive, standing strong and resilient beyond imagination. She returned to France, opened a small school for young women, and lived peacefully for the rest of her life. La Nonna Maria was the last known member of the Nicoleño people who once lived on San Nicolas Island off the coast of California. In the early 19th century, the tribe suffered devastating losses due to violent conflicts with Russian and Aleut fur hunters.
What is this guy saying?
Eat A, Ciatur LB, 2A Dovi, Eat Air Nessa Pavanes, Tag LFYL, Aleds RA.
Fight!
Reducing their population to only a few dozen. In 1835, the California authorities arranged to relocate the remaining Nicoleño people to the mainland. Amid the confusion, Wainana Maria went back to search for a missing family member. By the time she returned, the ship had left due to worsening weather, leaving her completely stranded. The first period was a brutal test of survival. She built shelter from driftwood, seagrass, and animal hides, using whale bones as a frame and mud to seal out the wind. Fresh water was incredibly scarce, collected only from natural rock basins or brief rain showers. At first, she survived on shellfish and seaweed, then crafted a spear from whalebone to hunt fish and young seals. She climbed cliffs to gather seabird eggs, enduring storms, wild animals, and total isolation. The first winter nearly took her life. Ocean winds shredded her clothing, forcing her to learn sewing. After countless failed attempts and swollen hands, she eventually made her first clothing from cormorant and seal skins. Keeping fire alive was another challenge. She relied on old embers left behind by her people and tried not to let them die. A heavy rain extinguished her fire, forcing her to spend hours learning to create sparks from wood until she succeeded. Over years of practice, she mastered crafting tools from bone, stone, and shells, weaving baskets from seagrass, and moving seasonally to stay safe. She kept her spirit alive by singing and dancing alone along the shore. In 1853, after 18 years, a hunter named George Nidiver found her living in a hut built of whale bones. Joanna Maria smiled warmly and tried to communicate, but no one could understand her. The Nicoleño language had gone extinct. She was brought to Santa Barbara, but after nearly 2 decades of isolation, her body could not adapt to the new environment. She passed away only 7 weeks later. She became a cultural icon of California and the inspiration for the novel Island of the Blue Dolphins.